Hello, I thought I would pop in today with a book video. I'm just going to talk through, I've picked, how many? Is that five or six of my favourite books from last year, so 2022. And then I've got a haul of books that I was given for Christmas, or a couple that I ordered myself before Christmas. And there were too many to put in the last podcast episode, so I thought I'll do a separate book video. So I apologise if you're only here for crochet talk. There will be none in this video, but I will film another episode of the podcast next week, so there'll be more crochet videos coming. So yeah, I think I just get started. I've also got my Goodreads, because I do put everything that I've read on my Goodreads. I do set a reading goal, and I think I'd set myself the challenge to read 40 books. I don't really pay much attention to it, to be honest with you. I read for pleasure, and I generally read most days, but on average I tend to read, I'd say, a book a week. So I can usually do 50 or so books in a year. But last year I read, where is it? There we go. So in 2022, I read 41 books, and that was a lot lower than normal. Not a lot, no, it's 10 books or so lower than normal. I was in a bit of a reading rut at the beginning of 2022, and I was really struggling to find inspiration. I think probably I wasn't in a great mindset anyway. So I really wasn't reading a lot, and I remember sort of getting halfway through January and thinking I've not read anything so far this year, and I picked up a Nikki French book. So the first book I read in 2022 was Nikki French, House of Correction, which was recommended by a colleague who also likes thrillers. And that's my kind of comfort genre. I do love a plot-driven book, something that keeps the pages turning. And I did read that over a weekend, so it sort of kick-started, I suppose, what had been a very slow month of reading. But the next book, or the first book that I'm going to recommend, I think I also read in January or at the end of January. And I think it's one of the books that really helped me sort of rediscover, that love of reading, and why reading is important to me. So the book is The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams. So it's set in its current day, and it follows an elderly gentleman. He's in his 80s, and he's really grieving his wife who died several years before, and he has become withdrawn from society. His daughters are very worried about him, and he finds a book that his wife had on loan from her local library. I think it's The Time Traveller's Wife. Anyway, he reads it. He's not a reader, but his wife loved books, so he kind of reads it, I think, to feel closer to her, because it was like one of the last things she touched. And he reads it, and he really enjoys it, and it also gives him this insight into his relationship with his wife. Like, he really identifies with that love. And anyway, he then drops the book back to the library, and it's a really big thing for him to leave the house and go somewhere unknown. It's really scary, but he does it, and he meets I think she's 17, a girl called Alicia, who works part-time at the library. She also she's also a non-reader. She works at the library part-time, but she also has a mum that she is like a full-time carer. Her and her brother are full-time carers for their mum. So she's also got a lot on her plate, and I think he asks her for some recommendations, and she just doesn't know what to say to him because she's not a reader, and I think she's quite rude, and he finds her quite rude, and it doesn't get off to a great start. But he does go back, and she finds in a book a copy of a reading list, and that it says something like should you need it, or something like that, and there's a list of like 10 books that whoever wrote the list has recommended. And so she reads the first one on the list. So when he comes back, she recommends it to him. And so then he reads it, and it goes like that. So she then continues to read the books on this reading list and recommend them to him. I can't remember his name, Mukesh. So it's just, they obviously develop this relationship. It's really lovely. It's really lovely about those intergenerational relationships, you know, about grief and how reading can provide an escape from that, you know, and how you can find people with, you know, shared hobbies, and the importance of like public libraries. I think the library is under threat at the time. It's just a really lovely book, really, about, you know, the importance of community, and that, you know, a library can provide that. So, you know, obviously I really just adored it. I thought it was lovely. I mean, it's you know, it's definitely not a page turner, but the characters are lovely, and I really liked it. So, and I think it was just exactly what I needed at that time. So and I love books about libraries, and I love also books with reading lists in, and I'm struggling to remember some of the books that were on there, but they were like classics like Little Women, there was The Life of Pi, maybe One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They were kind of like classic, you know, books. And then through that you get this thread about who wrote the mysterious list and the other people it's helped. So yeah, I really recommend that. And then I've got Elektra by Jennifer Saint. I really enjoyed this. It's a feminist retelling of, you know, the Greek myths of Elektra. Actually, it's called Elektra, but it follows three characters. Clytemnestra, who was the sister of Helen of Troy, you know, who was famously taken over to Troy and caused this big war. And then Cassandra, who's a princess of Troy, who was, I found her story the most interesting, actually, maybe because I didn't know very much about her. She was cursed by Apollo to be able to see the future, but the minute she tried to tell anyone, they wouldn't believe her. And that's really lonely, actually, to be able, she could actually see the downfall of Troy, but of course no one would believe her. Yeah, and it goes into the sort of why, you know, I suppose the myth of why Apollo did that to her, and obviously it's kind of like a spurned affection kind of myth, really. But anyway, and then you've got Elektra, who was the youngest daughter of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon. I think that's it. Clytemnestra, sister of Helen, wife of Agamemnon. And then Elektra, the youngest daughter of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon. She really adored her father. So he was famously killed by his wife and her new lover on his return from Troy. I think because he'd taken a new wife, or he'd brought back an enslaved woman who had become his lover. Anyway, she absolutely adored her dad, and yeah, wanted to get revenge on her mum and his lover for killing him. Anyway, it's just, if you like these Greek retellings, yeah, it was just a really good one. And you know, I really love this kind of genre of retelling from the women's perspective, you know, that have, you know, actually these characters have sort of historically been overlooked, and so it's really nice to delve into some of their backstories. And you know, it's a novel, so you have to take it all with a, you know, a dash of salt, really. But yeah, really liked that. The next book was one I read really late in the year, actually. My friend lent it to me in December, and she just said, oh, it's a really quick, you know, quick read, but it's really lovely. And it's Small Things Like These by Clare Keegan. I'd not read anything of hers before, but it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, 2022 Booker Prize. It's a really short little sort of novella. It's 150 pages, and it's set in a small community in Ireland in the 1980s. and it follows a man called Bill in his midlife. He is a coal and timber merchant. He's got his own business and he's married. He's got 2 daughters, and they live, you know, fairly comfortably in this community. And this community is sort of suffering from, I suppose, like a kind of depression in that lots of businesses are folding and people are finding it really hard. And, you know, he's a really kind of person. He's always dropping off extra wood for people that can't afford it, that sort of thing. So he's quite kind-spirited. Anyway, he's just a workaholic. He just goes about his job, you know, and not really thinking too much. But you get a sense on this run up to Christmas that he's feeling like something's kind of lacking, and he's really questioning like what he's achieved. And there's, you know, a little bit about his backstory. He grew up with a single mum, which in this Catholic community, I suppose, would have been quite, you know, not the thing to do really. But his mum was in service to a lady, a widow of a big house, and she really looked after them and, you know, made sure he was educated. And so he was actually really lucky that she sort of took them under his wing. But he grew up sort of never knowing who his dad was. Anyway, in this small Catholic community, they had one of the Magdalene laundries, and he goes up there, you know, on the run up to Christmas to deliver wood and sees something that he, you know, I suppose he's not supposed to. And it really plays on his conscience, like he, you know, and then he goes back and, you know, the nuns are trying to sort of explain and sort of cover it up. And even to the point where they sort of continue to sort of threaten him. For example, I guess his daughters have attended the Catholic school, and, you know, they're like, well, you must have one coming up soon, that sort of thing. You know, he just feels terrible. Anyway, it's really about his conscience, really, conscience, what, you know, him really grappling with what he knows to be right and what's going, like he's seen this now. Now he's actually seen it, he's complicit. And, you know, although there were lots of rumours about what was going on up in the laundry, you know, they really never really believed it because, you know, the nuns were charitable. And I suppose that's the difference if you actually see something and then you know for a fact that this is going on. Yeah, so it's a really lovely story, and her writing is beautiful as well. I definitely could have read more of it. You know, I didn't really want it to finish, even though it's quite a sad, and it's nice to have a male protagonist as well. I felt like she wrote him really well. So yeah, I really recommend that actually. And because it's so small, you know, if you don't have a lot of time or you just want to dip your toe into something that's got a good story, I do recommend that a lot. So I was really pleased that she recommended that to me, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up unless I'd seen it in the shop. The next one I really recommend is The Island of Missing Trees. This is by Elif Shafak. And it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2022. I already spoke about this in the last podcast, so I won't go into it too much, but it's just a beautifully written story, and it's set against sort of modern day London and Cyprus in the 1970s. You know, 2 teenagers meet, they fall in love, there's this sort of forbidden love. One of them is Greek Cypriot, one of them is Turkish Cypriot, and they meet in this tavern, sort of, you know, halfway point that's sort of neutral to sort of all those discriminations. They meet there in secret, and I think it's called something like the Happy Fig. There's this really big fig tree that's sort of growing through the middle of the tavern, and then I suppose the war happens. He comes to the UK, she stays there, and then he goes back and they sort of reunite years later. So there's a lot on the effects of war for the people that stay and for the people that leave, you know. That's really interesting, the contrast, but it's very beautifully written, and some certain chapters are narrated from the point of view of the fig tree. he brings back a little bit of the victory after this tavern is destroyed in the war, and plants it in the garden. So yeah, it's really, really lovely. It's just so beautifully written, and I did not know a lot about that period in time, so that was really interesting. So yeah, lots of themes of, generational trauma, migration, war, and there's also this lovely element of the relationship between plants or trees and humans, which I think just gives it a kind of magic that you wouldn't expect from that sort of story. So I definitely recommend that one. And then the last fiction book that I will recommend from my 2022 reads is Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller. I think this is also called What Was She Thinking in the US. This one I picked up in a charity shop, and it had been on my shelf for a long time. And they made it into a film with Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench, which I watched after reading the book, which also is a really good film. It was nominated for the Booker Prize, I think, in 2003. So it's based around the relationship between two women. One of them, Barbara, is a very prim, middle-aged teacher. She lives alone with her cat. She's actually incredibly lonely, but she has all these, I suppose, these coping mechanisms that she's built up over many years. But she doesn't have any friends, and she also seems to quite hate people, honestly. She's quite bitter from the offset, which is in a way quite refreshing to read. I mean, neither of the characters in this book you will like. And again, that's also quite nice. Anyway, a new teacher arrives called Sheba. She's an art teacher. She's got, very refreshing, very creative, and everyone's kind of drawn to her. And, Barbara is as well. And they very tentatively spark up a friendship at work until Barbara discovers that Sheba is having, well, I wouldn't call it an affair really, because she's having a relationship with a student. Yeah, that's not having an affair. It says here an illicit affair. Yeah, I wouldn't call it that. She's having an inappropriate relationship with a student, a 15-year-old student, and Barbara becomes aware of this and kind of, although she tells her, like, you need to stop that, she uses this power to her advantage to get closer to her and sort of, really embed herself in her life. It's very creepy. It's kind of single white female for the older generation. I really loved it. I loved the writing. I loved both the characters were just people that you just don't like. They're both, especially Sheba's very privileged, and she's got this marriage and this lovely home life. And you do end up feeling quite sorry for her, because actually her friendship with Barbara is just so toxic. And I think it's interesting that this sort of toxic relationship is more a focus than the act of Sheba, having that relationship with an underage child. But also I think that it shows like a side of loneliness that, you don't often see, and that it can be really toxic and it can really eat you up. And I think in both these cases, Sheba is actually very lonely, despite being in a marriage and having a child. She is very lonely, and Barbara obviously is very lonely, despite saying that she's not. So yeah, it's kind of the bitter side of loneliness. And I think that's quite interesting. It's not a very long book either, so it's and it's very well written. So I really enjoyed that, and I also really recommend the film because that was very good. But yes, sort of an example of that festering loneliness, which is very different from the reading list. Those different, the way loneliness can affect different people. So that's it. I picked one non-fiction. That's the Agatha Christie, An Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. I really enjoyed reading this. I mean, I like a lot of Agatha Christie books, so this was a bit of a no-brainer for me, but I love all of Lucy Worsley's work. I think she just always, they're just so accessible, they're so easy to read. So yeah, I rate that. And the other non-fiction that I enjoyed, and I don't know if it's because I listened to it on Audible, was Mudlarking, and that's by Lara Maiklem. Is that right? I'll put the name here. I listened to it on Audible, and it was really lovely because it's about the way they sort of comb the foreshores of the River Thames, and they find all these historical sort of little snippets of social histories, from sort of button buckles to dolls, and it's lovely. But I mean, it might be a little bit repetitive, I suppose, through the chapters, but you also get these lovely river sounds, and it's also narrated by her, and she's just got this lovely relaxing voice. So yeah, I really recommend that one if you are looking for a book, and a non-fiction book that is very calming, and yeah, really, so I did find that one really interesting to listen to. So those were my recommendations from 2022, so some of my favourite books. I read some other books that I rated highly, but they were rereads, so I haven't really spoken about them here, but those are some of my highest rated books, I think, for the year. I would love to hear your favourite book of 2022. Do you have a favourite read? If so, comment down below and let me know, because yeah, the recommendations that I did receive last year, I really enjoyed. So yeah, it'd be lovely to hear, and maybe we could get some recommendations from each other as well. So I will just go quickly through the books that I got for Christmas. They were gifts, and most of them were gifts actually, and one that I pre-ordered. So we'll have a look. The first one I've got here was the Nutcracker, and it's in one of these, these clothbound editions, but I think it's, you hold it up against a normal size book. They're like miniature. Lovely. So that was really nice to receive for Christmas, because I've not read the Nutcracker for years, and I didn't actually read it over Christmas, so I think I'll probably save that for next Christmas now. It starts on Christmas Eve, so that might be one to read in the run up to Christmas. So it's just so beautiful, I love it. So I received that, and then I got a couple of books from Lulu actually. She bought me the Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. Olivie Blake? 6 are chosen, only 5 will walk away. I've not heard anything of it really. It says 6 extraordinary magicians, 5 chances to win, 1 secret society. Once a decade, the world's best magicians are invited to join the elite Alexandrian society. Its members enjoy a lifetime of power and access to ancient secrets, but only 5 places are offered. So after recruitment by the mysterious Atlas Blakely, the candidates must complete a rigorous year of arcane study. It sounds a bit like the Hunger Games for magicians. That sounds like something I can read and enjoy. So I look forward to reading that at some point. And then she also bought me this book, which I have been eyeing up in the bookshop for probably most of the year. It's Medusa by Jessie Burton, and it's the girl behind the myth, and it's illustrated by Olivia Matchgirl. I like Jessie Burton's writing, but this is a like a YA offering from her, but it's just so beautiful. Look at that. And there's another book. Oh, I've still got Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes to read. That's the story of Medusa as well, but I am really happy to have this. I've not read it yet, but look at the illustrations, are just beautiful. So there are lots of colour illustrations throughout. I mean, I could just look at those all day. Look at that. There we go. Lovely. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. That shouldn't take long. I haven't read it yet. I was just so, oh gosh, look at that. So under the cover is Look at that illustration. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm really, really pleased to have that. Yeah, like I said, it was one of those books that I've been eyeing up in Waterstones every time we go in. Yeah, so I was really, really pleased to find that under the Christmas tree. Like, I was so excited to finally have it. And I'm going to, I think that's going to be one of the books I read next as well. And then my other daughter bought me Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. I've not heard anything about that. It says, in a world of 1920s decadence and excess, Francesca May's irresistible debut weaves a dazzling tale of dark magic, romance and murder. Gosh, that sounds like something I would like. And I think she said she'd read the back and it sounded very Gatsby-esque. But that's obviously got some magic element about it as well. So yeah, I will look forward to reading that. So both the girls, they know me so well when it comes to my reading. What else have we got here? I also got The Seven Moons of Maali, Almeida. This is the book that won the, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. I'm not sure, but there you go, have a look. So that's The Seven Moons of Maali, Almeida, and this one won the Booker Prize for 2022. So I really wanted a copy of that. Again, I've not read it. It says, a searing satire set amid the murderous mayhem of Sri Lanka, beset by civil war. I think it's told from the perspective of a photographer who has died. So it says, Colombo 1990, Maali Almeida, war photographer, gambler and closet gay, has woken up dead in what seems like a celestial visa office. His dismembered body is sinking into the Bira Lake and he has no idea who killed him. At a time when scores are settled by death squads, suicide bombers and hired goons, the list of suspects is depressingly long, as the ghouls and ghosts who cluster around him can attest. But even in the afterlife, time is running out for Maali. He has 7 moons to try and contact the man and woman he loves most and lead them to a hidden cache of photos that will rock Sri Lanka. That sounds so good. I can't wait to read that. Yeah. So that will be interesting. So I was pleased to have that. And then this is one that I pre-ordered for myself just before Christmas. It's The Little Matchgirl Strikes Back. Okay. And I ordered, it's a signed copy by the illustrator, who is Lauren Child, and the author, who is Emma Carroll. I love Lauren Child's illustrations. Primarily that was why I pre-ordered the book. Yeah, we buy all her books. I mean, really, since my eldest was younger, we've been, I think we actually went to see Lauren Child at one of the Bath literature festivals, and she got one of her Clara's Bean books signed. But anyway, and Emma Carroll is a lovely children's author. She does lots of historical fiction for children, and they're always beautifully written as well. So we have quite a few of her books too. So that was a win-win really. So it's Little Matchgirl Strikes Back. So it's a retelling of The Little Matchgirl. So it says it's a defiant and empowering retelling of the classic you thought you knew, based on real life events. One strike and you'll be in a better place. Her illustrations, I just love it. And they're all in red and black and white in this book, which I think is interesting as well. But so there we go. It's signed by the author and the illustrator. So I'm really, really happy to have that. And I just, look at this. Look at those illustrations. Just brilliant. I just love her work. So I'm really happy to have that. Where am I? So, yep, just a couple more. I also received The Story of Art Without Men by Katie Hessel. The story of art as it's never been told before, from the Renaissance to the present day, with over 300 works of art. How many women artists do you know? Who makes art history? Do women even work as artists? Did women even work as artists before the 20th century? So, yeah, I really, I was drawn to that. It's got lots of, it's kind of text heavy, but there are also lots of artwork. So I thought I would read this and then probably pass it on to Lulu, because she is the artist in the family. So I think that would be really lovely for her to read as well. So it's probably not the type of book that I will read all through in one sitting, but you've got Paving the Way, What Made Art Modern, Post-War Women, Taking Ownership, and Still Writing. There are lots of, you've got War, Identity, and the Paris Avant-Garde, the aftermath of the First World War. I think it would just be really interesting. I mean, I think anything like that where women have been traditionally overlooked is interesting, and I love the way you can barely see without men. Just think that's great. So yeah, I'm going to read that, and then we'll probably pass that on to Lou. And then my mum bought me this beautiful book, Through the Garden Gate by Susan Hill. This is a companion book to one that I bought her earlier in the year, which is Through the Kitchen, I think it's called. Yeah, Through the Kitchen Window. They're just very beautiful, beautifully illustrated books. I've had Through the Kitchen Window for a long time, and I found a copy of it in the charity shop. I came across a copy of it. It's got just lovely illustrations by Angela Barrett. And so I gave it to her last year as a gift, and she loved it. And I didn't even know there was a companion to it, so she's found that for me. And I've not read this one yet, but I will look forward to it. They're just such beautiful little books. Yeah, Children's Gardens, Delights from Garden. Yeah, it's just lovely. Look at those illustrations. So, yeah, really, really pleased to have that. I wasn't expecting that, so that was lovely. And then the last one is one that my husband bought me from my my wish list. And it's a cookbook. It's Jeremy Lee's Cooking Simply and Well for One or Many. So it's also one of those cookbooks that's really lovely and illustrated beautifully. There aren't photos on every page, but I like it. It's one of those books that you kind of read about, you can read through, and then, there are recipes. And the photography is lovely as well. So, yeah, I haven't had time to go through all of that, but I did find a recipe that I'm probably going to make this afternoon actually, and it's a pot of lentils. So, yeah, I think I'm going to try that. It says, a pot of lentils cooked early in the week can be cooled and stored in the fridge to be warmed through when needed. Yep. I'm definitely going to try that. Sounds lovely, and you can have it with, with other bits, fish, meat on its own. So I'm going to try that recipe today. So I might film that maybe. Maybe I'll film that and add it to a vlog or something. So yeah, I was really pleased to have that. So, and that is it. So I was very, very lucky, to have such thoughtful family, people that know me so well. So. Yes, I'm very, very grateful. I will try and link everything mentioned, if I can, below. I'll see how I get on with that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. So maybe some recommendations for you. Let me know what you've been reading. Let me know your favourite books from last year. And I will be back with a podcast episode hopefully next week. So yeah, I will see you then. Bye.